So if you want to break 90 for the first time, there's one important fact that you need to realise. On average, a 15 to 20 handicapper only hits 1 in 4 greens in regulation, which means you're missing 12 or 13 greens per round, and that's a big problem because inside a 25 foot, an 18 handicapper has 25% chance of getting up and down. And in between 25 and 50 yards, that number decreases significantly to just 12% of 18 handicappers will get up and down from that kind of yardage. So the likelihood is when I talk about short game, you've more than likely got a wedge that looks something like this. And when I say like this, it is effectively, well, if we was describing it as an iron, it'd be a blade. And no high handicapper would go near a blade. In fact, to be honest with you, no low handicapper would either. So the question is, why we're making these clubs our choice when it comes to short game? Well, quite simply, it's because our brain has been training that way. It's what golfers told us to do for many, many years. The Titleist Vokey is probably the most popular wedge on the planet, but the simple fact is that is a blade. I don't think it's doing you any good at all. So when you realise those stats, you start to understand that the importance of improving your game and lowering your scores has very little to do with a brand new £500 driver, and in fact it all starts down the other end of the bag. The short end of the bag is the way you can significantly reduce that handicap and ultimately lower scores. And sit down. So the question is what makes this part of the game as easy as possible to help us? What clubs help us, and why we should definitely be looking in our bags and reaching to our wedges and possibly throwing them all away. And in today's video, I'm going to provide you with 3 different options that make this game a whole lot easier and are not dependent on improving a swing. So, perfect scenario, tight little lie, back of the green, I've got 34 yards to that flag, and my option is playing that bladed wedge. I've got to nip it off the top, I've got to get a super clean contact, everything's got to be perfect, and then I've got to judge the distance and all those other things that come into mind and control that golf ball. I'm going to reach for a real weird alternative. It's a hybrid, and it's a hybrid with 43, is it? 43 degrees aloft. It's a pitching wedge, it's from 11, and it's a tool that can be extremely useful for many other golfers in and around this situation. And all you're looking to do is get a bit of rhythm in your swing, start to judge distance, have a bit of a practice with it, and then get it firing towards that hole. As you can see, that's on line. It's gonna pull up maybe sort of 8 or 10 feet short of the flag. I've got myself that chance of making up and down. Other option was to use that blade, chunk it or thin it through the back, and every now and then I might get one right. Get in the hole. Now that was a better result than the first, but the same sort of situation. 25 yards it was from there to the flag. That's that figure again where everyone's struggling to get up and down. This time I used a different club. It's a wedge. It's much more like a wedge that you're, a club rather, that you're familiar with. This is the new wedge from Cleveland. It's the CBZ, and I've been a big admirer of the CBX range for quite some time. But essentially what both of these two clubs do, whether it be the hybrid, that super wide sole of the hybrid, or the wide sole that can be found on these CBZ wedges, they really help us with, well, a little bit of wriggle room in terms of if we make a mistake, if we get it a little bit heavy, this wedge, this sole on the wedge will really help us with that sort of club, turf, ball interaction. So when you don't get things quite right, which inevitably we're not going to, especially within those handicap categories, then you've got a little bit of help, something to fall back on. And again, going back to that sort of standard wedge, the blade type wedge, you ain't going to get that type of help. So there's 2 examples of 2 clubs in that 25-yard distance from the flag. I'm going to show you one more before we move on to that further distance, that 50 to 75 yards, and why again these clubs can be a huge help. But I promise you 3 options, and if all else fails and you can't get on with the CBZ or the idea of using a lofted hybrid, then there's one final alternative for one of the shots at least. Well, I think we've got a bit of help out of that other ball and we'd have gone a little bit further than we'd have hoped for. But if you're really struggling with options 1 and 2, then you can almost lean into your bag, and if you've got one, go for something like a 7 wood or ideally a 9 wood. Needs a little bit more of an upright position, but all you're doing is adopting a putting stroke that you'll be hugely familiar with. And this is all about getting the ball on the green as close to the flag as you possibly can and reducing your scores. So make sure you're choosing clubs that give you the best option, or chance rather, of doing so. That number 56 yards from the flag is proven to be really difficult, and I've got 2 of these clubs which I think are perfect alternatives from what you're currently using. I've got enough legs. I think could be slightly on the short side, so we're into that zone now where ultimately this is difficult, isn't it? We're almost playing a 3/4 swing. I've got that CBZ wedge would be the kind of ideal selection here, 56 degrees. In the same sort of scenario, I'm using the sort of club sole turf interaction, firing the club in a bit, not doing anything too fancy, on the hope that if I do get anything wrong, that wide sole is going to help me. I'm going to go straight into that other option that I'm suggesting can be hugely successful. It's the pitching wedge hybrid. Never knew these things existed really, but oh my word, how good can these be? That's probably the best out of the lot. If we've got the yardage right, then that's sort of dancing all over it. Principle exactly the same, and just got so much confidence. The thing you've got to grab with the hybrid in your head, that is just to commit enough to swing full and let the loft do its thing. It's a different concept. It's a huge amount of loft on a hybrid, but I can assure you it'll be a massive help. It's nearly gone in there. Ah. Now, one of the reasons why you might think that a blade type wedge would be better than the options that are provided is the sort of the control, the spin element. But this is 2 shots coming in at 75 yards and they're in a green that is effectively sloping away, and there's plenty of control and grab. They also come down from quite a descent angle as well, so I think those kind of things can also be dismissed. The point is this, with any of these experiments that I do, and a little bit tongue-in-cheek when I suggest you dump stuff, well obviously you wouldn't do that, but blades, irons or blade wedges, they're going to work, and they're going to work in a number of different situations. But it's important that we don't dismiss the other options and just get blindsided by the fact that we assume that a wedge should look a particular way. They don't have to, and there are ways of simplifying this game, and looking at things like these pitching wedge hybrids and the CBZ line from Cleveland definitely give you more options and potentially make the game a little bit easier for you. And that's my job as far as this channel is concerned, is present as many cases as I can to make this game as easy as possible. The important thing is then that you go out and try for yourself and determine whether you should stick with that blade or maybe look for alternative options. Right, sun is shining late on in the afternoon, late September in Holywell. Couldn't ask for it any better. Hope you're all still enjoying your golf. I will see you all soon.